Welcome to another episode of Preferred Walk-On, PFF's College Football Show. I'm your host, Max Chadwick, alongside my co-host, Dalton Wasserman. Producer Eli back there. It's good to be back in lovely Cincinnati, Dalton. Back in studio right now, and we got a loaded episode for you guys because we just found out yesterday the 4 teams that made the college football playoff, and more notably who didn't make the college football playoff. We also have a bevy of quarterbacks and other top players entering the transfer portal right now. It is silly season in college football. It's basically college football free agency going on. We found out all the bowl games as well. And the most important part of this episode today, we are unveiling PFF's All-American Team that was voted on by 17 of PFF's top college football analysts like ourselves, top data collectors like yourself too, Dalton. 17 of the top college football minds, basically, in Pro Football Focus, voted on the All-American Team, and we are unveiling it right now. And this will actually be out before the article even comes out. So if you want to check out PFF's All-American Team, this is the place to do it right here, right now, Dalton. So loaded episode that we got for you guys today after a really great conference championship weekend, I would say.
It was. We had a couple of excellent games, couple of blowouts, couple of uglier games that I think were more entertaining than people think. But no, the stakes were as high as ever, and the teams, look, you got certain teams taking care of business. You got the one big upset with Alabama and a whole lot of controversy that came after it that it felt like we knew was coming, and we're actually here. So I think today we went on about this last week, and I think you know where we both stand on this.
Mm-hmm.
We can go over some things here one last time, but I suppose, now what's done is done, and I think a big thing to me, and I'll get into Florida State in a minute, is just how badly we need this expansion, and the more I think about that, we didn't have this already sooner, and it doesn't make sense really, because you've got all the same teams that are playing the New Year's Six bowls. Those would roughly be the same matchups, tweak it a little bit, and when you've got, I was thinking about it, the FCS level does 24.
Mm-hmm.
The Division II does 28. Division III does 32. Everywhere, the NFL has their playoffs. High school, you go down to high school football, it's one big 32 or 64 team bracket, depending on the state and the class. Top level college football is the only level of football anywhere that doesn't have this right. And starting next year, they'll have it right. That doesn't make it any more right, to me at least right now. Some people think this is the perfect scenario. And honestly, I shouldn't be surprised, because even from the first ranking back in week 7 or week 8?
Something like that.
I really didn't know what the criteria for the rankings were. So, when I thought about it like that, I'm not surprised that this is as controversial as it is, because even back then there was parts of it to me, especially in the top 8 to 10, that didn't make a ton of sense. So I'll be really glad next year when we just have it the proper way it should be. And I can definitely get into it. Well, I do want to get into the Florida State angle here in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just quickly, so if anyone's living under a rock and they don't know what the college football playoff ultimately ended up being, this is what it is. It's Michigan number 1, Washington number 2, Texas number 3, Alabama number 4, Florida State at 5, and Georgia at 6. And obviously the big contentious point for everyone, including this show, if you watched any of our previous episodes, is Florida State falling out of the top 4, even though they're a 13-0 Power 5 champion. And it's never happened before. Like we mentioned before, a Power 5 13-0 champion has never been left out. And including, there's never been a one-loss Power 5 champion that's been left out who played in a conference title game. Because Baylor and TCU, like I mentioned in 2014, they were a one-loss champion, but they shared the championship in the Big 12 together. So this is the first time that a 0 or 1-loss Power 5 champion was left out of the college football playoff. And I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame, Dalton. We don't have to get too much into it because we kind of went on a 30-minute rant in our preview of the Florida State Louisville of saying, hey, if they beat Louisville, you better not leave them out. And they beat Louisville by 10 points, and they were still left out of the college football playoff. So,
yeah,
sucks.
I think we can argue for best, for most deserving, all that. I mean, I think even the analytics and the things we try to either predict or analyze or do all this. It's about winning and losing, right? So I think there is something to going through your whole season and not losing. I think everything, to me, every reason that Florida State was left out was circumstantial. Okay, here's a handful for you. One, if Isaiah Bond doesn't catch that ball against Auburn, it's Texas and Florida State, right?
Yep.
Two, if Louisville comes into this game with a win over Kentucky as a one-loss team that realistically still has a playoff shot, and the score is the same, let's just say it's 16-6, and they beat Louisville, and Louisville was still number 8 or 9 instead, and they had one loss.
Yep.
Florida State gets in?
Yeah, easily.
3, if this was a 12-team playoff, and the consequence wasn't somebody like an Alabama getting left out, instead, they'd get a 5 seed and just have to play a home game against Liberty, which is another controversy. Would they have just let Florida State have the bye week? Do you think they would have just left them in the top 4, being that the consequence for a different team isn't as big? Mm-hmm. We know Alabama in a home game against Liberty, let's just say it's Bama, what they would likely do to Liberty, right? Yeah. Would they leave Florida State out of that top 4?
No, probably not.
Right. So, and to be honest with you, the other thing I thought about, so Florida State's offense looked the way it did with a backup, right?
On a third string.
Third string, sorry. On the backup, they didn't look that bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad on a backup. I think with Rodemaker, they would have won this game by 21. Honestly.
Probably.
Glenn is just not – I got nothing against him. He's just not ready to play. That was his first career action at all. So the last one to me is we saw Texas offense with a backup, right, with Malik Murphy. Skidded by pretty hard, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Really skidded by, okay? Alabama on their backups – I don't know. We still to this day don't know why they sat Milroe for that USF game. Legitimately almost lost to USF. Yeah. So I think Florida State going on the road, rival, backup, third stringer, all that, and conference championship games with bigger stakes, not home games, than Texas and Alabama did when they had their backups, and just poor timing. I think everything about why Florida State was left out was circumstantial. And last thing for me, one, I don't want to hear that, everything's settled on the field. Not this year. Don't say that till next year. 2, anybody who thinks Florida State should be out is not allowed to use the phrase defense wins championships. Okay? Yeah. Let me give you a couple things. 1, Florida State since week 7 is the 3rd highest graded defense in the country. Michigan, SMU, Florida State. Among other factors on their offense, we know the receivers are great. We know Benson and Tofili played the game of his life the other night, getting in the Wildcat, 120 yards, I believe it was, rushing. Best pass protecting team since week 7. At the end of that Louisville game, my eyes told me, I was like, that might be the best defensive game I've seen played all year. Mm-hmm. So I had to dig into it, okay? So all the FBS football that's been played this year, okay? That was under those circumstances against Louisville, a legitimate top 20 team, even right now they're number 15. That was the 14th highest defensive graded game by any team all season. Let me isolate that a little further, because this is a championship defense. So I don't want to hear defense wins championships from anybody, okay?
Yep.
Against Power 5 offenses. Max, a Power 5 offense took the field just under 800 times this year. Mm-hmm. That performance from Florida State was the 5th best among those it's like 783 or something, okay? And the 4 ahead of them, I'm going to give you the 4 ahead of them real quick. Auburn against Vandy. Mm-hmm. That's Vandy. Boston College against Syracuse, who just fired their coach, and I watched them play, I think, 4 different quarterbacks last Saturday.
I've watched that too. Yeah, as a Syracuse alum, I watched that. Very familiar.
Penn State against Rutgers, and Penn State against Michigan State. Let me just put this in layman's terms. Florida State just did to Louisville in a conference title game, a top 15 team, what Penn State did to Michigan State. That is how good their defense is.
Yep.
That is a championship caliber top 4 defense right now. And so don't tell me defense wins championships. Don't tell me complimentary football and all that, because they just did it to a T. and still got left out.
Can I ask you this, Dalton? If Florida State won that game 41-31, are they left out of the college football playoff?
Probably not.
Probably not. Why is there a difference?
One other question, because the more I thought about this. So, knee jerk, when Florida State won, at first I thought Florida State, Texas. Okay. The more I've stewed on this for 24 hours, I think it should have been Florida State and Bama. I think, and I know the head-to-head, but that was week 2 in basically Jalen Milroe's first start.
Yeah.
What was it against? His first start was against Middle Tennessee. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's basically, but okay, you beat. To me, if you beat Georgia, I think it at least breaks that even. Please tell me why beating Oklahoma State, which was the best possible matchup for Texas. First, Louisville's better than Oklahoma State. If you put them on a field right now, I would pick Louisville.
Yeah.
I don't think with a whole lot of question.
No,
because Oklahoma State, that's a one-man show.
Yeah.
Okay. What in the world is it about Oklahoma State that warrants jumping Texas from 7-3?
Yeah.
Over these other teams when Bama beat Georgia, and I head to head is cool, but I'm going to be on. The more I think about this, the more that's the only thing Texas has. And don't give me the strength of schedule thing with Florida State. Well, they're undefeated, but strength of schedule. When you took Liberty over SMU, and Liberty is dead last in the country in strength of schedule. I don't want to hear anything about strength of schedule.
Did you see? Oh my God, did I quote it or not? Okay, the executive director was asked about why he put Liberty in over SMU, and they're like, well, Liberty literally played the reporter was like, Liberty played the easiest schedule in the country this year, and he was like, yeah, they did, but they won their games. What?
Right. Let's just this and it's things like that.
What?
And the rankings have actually been consistently inconsistent this entire time. I'm ready. I'm just as ready as ever for 12. That right there to
they won their games.
To pass up Florida State, but then also pass up SMU. Now, I'm not saying if SMU played Liberty, probably be a darn good football game. But
I would have taken Liberty. I know you might disagree with me. I would have taken Liberty, but for you to deny Florida State for that reason and then say, "Oh, Liberty gets it for the same reason," it's like, what are you talking about, man?
No, it doesn't make. It doesn't make.
So,
and literally, that just means SMU had to win at TCU to be ahead of Liberty. I don't get it. Why even? I don't even know if you're like an administrator, AD, whatever. I don't even know how you make your schedule, man. I have no idea.
Why? Can I ask you this? If you're going best teams, why is Florida State above Georgia?
Yes, thank you. No, you're right. No, that's exactly it. If you're going best teams 1 through 4, and then you deserve number 5, and then Georgia's
what are we talking about, man?
None of it.
Oh my goodness!
It made no sense before when Oregon was ahead of Texas and Bama. Can you imagine if Oregon had won?
Oh my God, dude!
Where we'd be sitting right now?
Bama would be out, right? They put Bama out. Who knows? Who knows, man? Who knows? Listen, I would have put Texas in just because I think the games. My argument for Florida State is the games have to matter. I think then leaving out Texas, even though they beat Bama at Bama too by 10. I kind of switched up. I used to think Alabama should get in over Texas, and then when I thought about it more, I was like, if I'm
that's funny because I would go Bama. All the metrics. Season-long metrics.
Oh yeah, the resume's better. The resume's better.
That's the only singular argument.
Yeah,
is that Texas beat them way back in week 2.
But I hate and I understand teams get better over the year, but I don't love the when it happened either because it's like it happened. So I don't know. I don't love it.
But they've done it for Florida State. Florida State's. Well, when did the injury happen?
Oh, I know. No, I know. I'm on your side here. Yeah.
We saw you can't judge a team. Like we saw how Bama looked with their backup. We saw how Texas looked with their backup.
Can you imagine if Ohio State was left out because of Cardale Jones? Can you imagine if the Eagles, when Carson Wentz went down, they got, hey, sorry, you can't win a Super Bowl without Carson Wentz. Your MVP quarterback.
Well, this is how Tom Brady's career started.
Yeah, it's like sorry.
I thought backup quarterbacks were everybody's favorite thing.
Yeah. No, it's the most in every other sport we're celebrating teams persevering through injuries except for college football. We're like, no, sorry, you can't do it.
And only top-level college football.
Only top.
The lower levels have this right.
And let me ask
you, 24s and 32s and playoffs, and nobody. You don't ever hear anybody in the FCS level crying. I know it's not as much publicity, but like this is just you don't have to get chosen. You earn that. If you don't make the top 24 of something, you have to get better.
Okay. let me ask you this, Dalton, and I want to move on from this quick soon because I don't want to spend a whole episode on this, but. If Bama beat Texas and then lost some other game, say LSU, whatever, and Texas versus Florida State was the argument, would Florida State have gotten in over them?
Absolutely. The Texas win over Bama is the only thing that has them in there at all.
It's just because the SEC is getting left out, which has never happened before.
They beat K-State, who's number 25. I'm not sure Oklahoma State is still ranked right now. I didn't see it.
I don't know.
Are they in the bottom half of those rankings? I mean, otherwise, Kansas State, at least I test, is probably the next best team that they beat.
Oklahoma State's 20 now, which I think they should be lower than that. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, man. I mean, it's just
it's that sad. One win in week 2 is the only thing that has Texas where they are.
If you're going by the best teams, I would argue the best teams in terms of just who would be favored on a neutral field. I think Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Those are your 4. I would probably say Alabama. I know Texas beat Alabama.
I disagree. I still don't get the disrespect for Washington.
Well, I think betting-wise, do you think Ohio State or Washington's favored on a neutral field?
I think betting-wise, Ohio State would be favored, but I'd pick Washington to win.
Yeah, well, that's fair. But I think betting, like if you're just objectively going by the odds, which is what.
Yeah, I can't do that. These are the same.
Oh, that's
people
what they're going
Vegas.
off of. That's what
these are the people. These are the people in Vegas who had Oregon favored by 10 and Tennessee favored.
No, that's what I'm
Missouri.
saying. That's what we're doing. We're playing it on a spreadsheet right now.
I can't trust people who favor Tennessee over Missouri at Missouri.
Here's another one. Another quote from Book Corrigan. The questions we asked from a coaching standpoint is who do you want to play and who do you not want to play? That was one of the things that took into account. So how is Georgia left out then?
So it's all circumstance and opinion.
So how is Georgia left? Like what?
Literally,
nobody wants to play Georgia.
The reason, Max, that PFF exists is to take as much of this out as possible, and clearly they just don't. It's been inconsistent the entire time this year, and it's funny because expansion before this year was a thing because it felt like we were getting the same 4 or 6 teams in every single year and people wanted to see more, and I find it so ironic and almost hilarious that now is the year when we had too many and we needed expansion to get more of them in. It's actually a sickly fitting way for it to end.
Yeah, honestly, man. I mean, the Jordan Travis tweet was heartbreaking. I mean, you see that where he was like, "I wish my leg broke. I wish my leg broke earlier so that you could see his team is much more than just me." It's like, man, that sucks, man. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. I feel for Florida State. I feel for them. It should be a great playoff still. Don't get me wrong. I'm still very excited for it, but there always will be kind of that dark cloud hovering over of what if they got a magical run with Tate Rodemaker? What if it happened? So it sucks. It sucks for the Seminoles, and we really feel for them. It sucks. It really does suck. But another thing we want to talk about, Dalton, is the transfer portal is going on right now. And speaking of Florida State, they might be in the market with Jordan Travis now obviously finishing his career at Florida State. There are a lot of quarterbacks, good quarterbacks in the portal right now. A lot of good players that we'll get into next week in a transfer portal episode. I believe we're going to be putting together a big board on PFF.com pretty soon too of like the top 25 or so players in the portal. We'll be doing that pretty soon. But just looking at the quarterbacks in the portal, Dawn, I mean, you have Cameron Ward from Washington State, who we actually interviewed. If you want to check out that interview, he was great. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, Riley Leonard, another guy we interviewed from Duke, Will Howard from Kansas State, Kyle McCord just this morning from Ohio State, DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State, Dante Moore, the true freshman from UCLA that I think has a lot of potential, and Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. Man, there are a lot, and there might be more entering the portal soon too. Like there is a lot of really, really talented signal callers that are in the transfer portal right now.
Oh, sure are. It just sticks out. And I was even looking at and Ohio State too. They lost Julian Fleming, also is in the portal now as well. And a lot of these. These are some really good football players. Dylan Gabriel is probably going to be in the top 6 or 7 of the Heisman race. Riley Leonard's thought of as a big-time prospect. Dante Moore was he the number 3 quarterback in the country in recruiting last year?
2, only behind Arch.
2. I mean, you got some guys, but to be honest with you, you look at all these guys' situations. A lot of them make sense to me, right? Like coaches leaving, like Riley Leonard and Uiagalelei, Dante Moore. It's something about the fit there just didn't work. Chip Kelly, they were rotating between 3 different quarterbacks. Van Dyke kind of fell out of favor. The most shocking one to me by far is Kyle McCord this morning. I couldn't believe that one when I saw it. I was like, what? I don't know what's going on there. If they feel like maybe Ohio State's targeting one of these guys, like I kind of see, like, is Dante Moore, could he be kind of a fit at Ohio State?
I would love that. You know who I think it's going to be? I think it's going to be Cam Ward.
Maybe so.
Who's the only? You look at that list.
Maybe they just feel like they need something more dynamic. I could see that, but McCord. I'll say again and again, he was really darn good this year. Whoever gets him has got themselves a player. He's a pocket passer. He's kind of classic, but he's a really darn good quarterback. I was that one of all of them. I was shocked to see more because the rest of them I could see the reason. Right, Riley Leonard with Elko leaving, and Will Howard. I think they're trying to go more towards Avery Johnson, more of an athletic kind of guy. But Kyle, I was shocked with the McCord one because I just didn't. I thought he played really, really well. I don't know if something went down or what.
I mean, you look at those names, or how many of them would you take over Kyle McCord next year? Is my question. Because I was Cam Ward, I would. Gabriel's tough because Gabriel was the 3rd highest graded quarterback in the country, but also I think he fits in a very specific system, though, right? Like I don't know.
I don't think like. Gabriel probably in the right offense, but I don't think it's about better. I think just about all these guys are in like a very similar kind of band of talent. It's the style though. I just wonder if Ohio State is looking more for like now. CJ Stroud is different. He was such a dynamic passer that it overcame and he was more mobile than McCord was. He showed in the last Georgia game, but I think. It makes me wonder if they're looking more for like what they used to have with like Justin Fields and Braxton Miller and guys like that can move a bit. And again, I thought this year was Ryan Day's best coaching job with a guy like McCord, first-year starter, doesn't really move. We saw him under pressure. That was the big problem, and it came through at the end of the Michigan game. But I think more than better, it's a style thing. I think now there's some of these who I think we could kind of piece together some fits, and I'm assuming we're going to do that. But I think about Riley Leonard's been kind of linked to Notre Dame, maybe. Right. I wouldn't. Dylan Gabriel's a funky one because my first instinct wonders if he follows Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State.
That's what I was thinking too.
Play in the SEC. I think Dante Moore might be actually the biggest get out of all these guys. This guy's got wicked talent, and I just don't know that he was in the right offense at UCLA.
Dude, not at all. I mean, he's got 2 more years, too. I mean, I think this guy could be a number 1 overall pick still. I mean, if he puts it – he had a stretch early in the season that he looked unbelievable. And I think, obviously, he really, really played bad down the stretch of the season, but I think he's got a lot of potential. So I think that's a very underrated guy that not a lot of people are talking about. But, there's a report that came out from Pete Nakos from On3. The 3 schools to watch for Dylan Gabriel are Mississippi State, Oregon, and USC were the 3 schools.
Oregon makes a boatload of sense. USC too, but I think Oregon makes a ton of sense. I think it's a similar system to what I think it's the most similar system to what Lebby was running at Oklahoma, while being in more of a national title contention picture than Mississippi State will be. Mississippi State is not going to be a national title contender next year.
No, it's going to be interesting, man. I think Cam Ward is probably the top name for a lot of people. I think he's got his pick. I mean, there's a report for him. It's from Pete Nakos again that said Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Florida State, Washington, Miami, and Wisconsin are the school. Like those are. I mean, you're talking about Washington's in the playoff right now, going to work with Kalen DeBoer. It sounds like a very enticing option for him. Lincoln Riley.
I think that would be a good fit at Florida State.
Yeah, so
I don't think he's all that. Actually, I don't think he's that different from Jordan Travis. No. Stylistically, so, I actually don't hate that fit either.
No, I mean, listen, it is a fun transfer portal. We're gonna get into it and a lot of fits later on, but we just want to quickly go over the quarterback specifically because it is a loaded quarterback class that we have in the transfer portal right now. So we'll get into the portal way more in depth later down the line, but we've got another very important thing to get to, which is the official PFF All-American team that I mentioned before. 17 of PFF's top college football minds, myself, Dalton included, we put our votes in. Also, a lot of data collectors that spent countless hours going over every college football game, every single one of them, even the ones that nobody wants to watch. They go over it and grade every single player and every single play and every single game. So that's why I think PFF's in a unique position to evaluate these players more than any other website or any other media outlet in the country, because we can tell you exactly who the best long snappers in college football are, which we will do. Once again, today, we will tell you exactly who the number one long snapper in college football was this year. But we'll start off, Dalton, with our quarterback. And there's no surprise here. It's Jayden Daniels, the LSU signal caller, who, quite literally, Dalton, I think he had one of the best seasons that we've seen by a quarterback in recent memory. It's just not being hyped up that way because LSU's 9-3, but regardless, this guy is our Heisman Trophy winner. We'll do our awards on Wednesday, but he would be our Heisman Trophy winner, and he's clearly the pick for us for our first-team All-American quarterback.
Absolutely, and anyone who wants to rob him of this spot or the Heisman Trophy for 3 losses, LSU's defense in those 3 losses gave up 142 points. So, Jayden Daniels this year all around was the best player in the country, or best offensive player in the country. I don't. It's the rushing. Think about this. He had even numbers passing wise to Penix and Nix on, I want to say, like 90 less attempts, somewhere around there. And if you take out the sack total or the sack yardage total, because I just don't know why the NCAA still counts rushing yards like this, he had 1,250 rushing yards. And 10 touchdowns as a quarterback. So the total for me, if you want to go traditional, 5,061 total yards and 50 touchdowns. Okay. Bo Nix is at 43-41 and 46 touchdowns. So you want traditional, there it is. Highest graded rusher in the country. Number 2 passing grade in the country. Number 4 in big time throws. Number 1 in deep grade. You just watch this guy. He's special. He is just special. And to overcome what he had to with that defense, and I mean his numbers also are ahead of Penix and Nix like that. And he played one less game. He played one less game and had like 90 or close to 100 less passing attempts than either of them. And he's the best offensive player in the country this year. And honestly, they were the EPA per play. I believe they were number 1. Best offense in the country, best player in the country, best quarterback in the country was at LSU. It was Jayden Daniels. And I'll be honest with you, I know there would have been a narrative thing. We said it last week. If Oregon had won, Jayden Daniels, for me, is the clear-cut, no question, best quarterback in college football this year. Heisman Trophy winner.
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't root for any teams, don't get me wrong, because we're objective here on the show. But I was, in a sense, a little happy that Washington won that game, because now you look at the betting odds. Bo Nix went from the Heisman favorite. Jayden Daniels is now minus 1,500 to take home the Heisman Trophy. So he is the heavy favorite to win the Heisman Trophy.
It's just the simple, he was the best player in college football this year. And his defense gave up almost 50 points a game in the 3 losses. You can't take that. He doesn't play corner. You can't do that to him.
LSU had the most efficient offense in the country this year. I mean, he is clearly, like you mentioned, he led all FBS signal callers in passing touchdowns, yards per attempt, passer rating, also the most rushing yards. I mean, I got to look where he is overall in terms of among running backs, but he's got to be in the top 10, right? 1280.
Last week I checked, there was 10 running backs with more yards than him, just in the whole country, just 10. And he only has, think about this, dude. Those 1,250 rushing yards are on 120 carries. That's absurd.
He's now, by the way, QB3 in the NFL draft, according to Trevor Sickman, his latest mock draft, top 10 pick. Dalton and I have been screaming it from the rooftops for a while now, and I'm glad that our lead draft analyst, Trevor Sickman, was on the train, because now this guy, man, go for some maybe a day 2 pick, probably a day 3 entering the season. Now he's a top 10 pick for how awesome he was this year. And real quick before we move on, the highest graded seasons that we've ever seen by an FBS quarterback in the PFF era since 2014. Number 1 was Mac Jones when he had a 95.8 grade. 2, Zach Wilson, 95.4. 3, Joe Burrow, 94.9. And then 4, Jayden Daniels, 94.7. And right behind him is Kyler Murray when he won the Heisman Trophy. So Mac Jones didn't win the Heisman that year because his receiver, Devontae Smith, won it. Zach Wilson, obviously, was the same season. He also played a very easy schedule at BYU. Joe Burrow, maybe the greatest season we've ever seen by a quarterback, was only 0.2 points above Jayden Daniels this year. And Kyler Murray, right behind Jayden Daniels, won the Heisman Trophy as well. So easily the Heisman Trophy winner, Jayden Daniels. We also interviewed Jayden Daniels. If you want to check out that interview, terrific guy. He mentioned the Heisman as one of his goals. And Jayden, I'm happy for you, man, because you're going to do it now. I'm really, really happy for him. So that's our quarterback, Jayden Daniels. Now, we're going to go over our skill position players right now. At running back is Ollie Gordon II from Oklahoma State. Our 3 receivers are Malik Neighbors from LSU, Rome Odunze from Washington, Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State, and our tight end is Brock Bowers from Georgia. So of those players, Dalton, who do you want to highlight there?
For me, it's Rome Odunze. I think it's obviously the most relevant right now with the Final Four. And to me, to highlight what he's done down the stretch, an 88 receiving grade, he's got the second most yards in the country behind Neighbors. But what he's done down the stretch and in big moments has been incredible. His last 4 games, got 100 yards in all of them, 439 yards and 6 touchdowns, and 17 of 24 on contested catches. This guy's a freak. Wow. He's a freak. On top of, you remember, he had the end around against Washington State that basically won Washington the ball game. This dude down the street, he's uncoverable. I honestly, I think of the remaining players in these top 4, I think he's the best player on any of the 4 teams.
Yeah.
There's some good arguments. Kool-Aid McKinstry and what Bama's got going in the secondary.
Yeah.
T'Vondre Sweat's really good. You got some excellent football players on all 4 teams, but I think Odunze, including his own quarterback, I think Odunze is the best player remaining in these playoffs, and what he's done down the stretch, I don't even. There's not a college corner who can guard him, and he is problem number 1, especially now if McMillan is healthy and he looks like he just did against Oregon. Good luck with Odunze 1-on-1 or maybe even 2-on-1. It might not matter. This guy down the stretch. Oh, and in 2 games, the 2 Oregon games, 16 catches, 230 yards, 4 touchdowns. Good luck.
Yeah, man. You got McMillan, and not only that, Jalen Polk too, who we have is, I think, still a first-round prospect on our big board. Like, that is ridiculous, that receiving core, that you're getting fully healthy now heading into the biggest games of the season for them, and that is unbelievable. So, yeah, he would probably be he would be PFF's second choice for the Biletnikoff Award, because our first choice is Jayden Daniels' number 1 weapon. That is Malik Neighbors from LSU, who has been, in my opinion, the best receiver in the country this year. He was the highest graded receiver with a 93 grade, led the nation as well in receiving yards with 1,545, and then also right around 3.8 yards per route run, which led the Power 5 as well. I personally would have this guy as a number 2 receiver in the NFL draft, right behind Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it is very close with him and Dunze, though, as well. And I know Keon Coleman has a lot of fans as well in that community, but man, what Malik Neighbors did this year was unbelievable. And this is actually only the second time ever that one school had both the highest graded quarterback and receiver in the nation. And the only other time was, like I mentioned before, the Alabama year when Mac Jones and Devontae Smith did. I actually thought LSU would have done it again in 2019 when Burrow and Jamar Chase, and Chase won the Biletnikoff that year, but he actually wasn't the highest graded receiver in the nation that year. So this is only the second time ever that's happened that we've had the highest graded quarterback and receiver from the same school. And Malik Neighbors, man, was unbelievable. And he might be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft afterwards because of it. So let's go over to our offensive line now, the big guys in the trenches. Our left tackle is Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Left guard, Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Both those guys we have interviews with on the channel, by the way, so check them out. They both were phenomenal. Center, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. Right guard, Christian Haynes from UConn. And right tackle, Talisa Fuaga from Oregon State. So who do you want to highlight there, Dalton, from the offensive line?
For me, it's Joe Alt, and I know Notre Dame, as the season's gone on and they lost some games, kind of got forgot about. But this guy should be the first tackle taken in the draft, and he's just incredible. 5 pressures all season, 1 sack, highest overall grade, second highest pass pro grade, only 13 pressures allowed across the last 2 seasons. It's just balance. He's got everything. There's really not a flaw with this guy, and it's a matter of how much you value offensive line over weapons and quarterbacks and everything in this draft. But he's been the best offensive lineman in the country for 2 years, and I just want to highlight his whole career. A 92.2 overall grade in his career. Very, very few tackles are in that stratosphere for their entire career. All played 3 years, and I'm talking guys who pretty much just about all of them went on to become just studs in the NFL. I'm talking about guys like Penei Sewell, like Jack Conklin, like Ryan Ramczyk, like Joe Thuney. These elite football players. Lyle Collins is in there. He was very good for a while before some injuries. Just Tyler Smith for the Cowboys right now. Just big time names on the offensive line that went on to become Pro Bowlers and All Pros. This guy's on his way to that. He actually, considering all the quarterbacks and receivers and everything, Joe Alt is probably the safest pick in the entire draft coming up. It's just so you just watch him. There's nothing to pick at, man. He's 6'8", he's 320. He moves in the run game. He's a fantastic passer. If you're building a brand new offensive line, this is the guy to start it with.
I'm glad you're on that train. I feel like I'm on an island, Dalton, in terms of having him over Olu Fashanu, another interview we have, by the way. But I think he is the number one tackle in this draft. I mean, we'll get into some draft takes down the line, obviously. But I think what he brings as a pass protector and run blocker is insane. And I think Olu is a great pass blocker for sure, but I think, there is a meanness in the run game that I think is kind of lacking still with Olu Fashanu. So I agree with you, man. I think Joe Alt's a top guy at tackle in this draft. I had that take in the summer, too, after last season because of how good he was last year, and he's been just as good, if not better, this year, man. So as absolutely deserved left. Second time in a row now, he's the first team All-American left tackle for PFF. He's only a true junior, by the way. So this guy has been he had a great true freshman season as well for Notre Dame. He started, I think, the second half of the season, and he had like an 83 grade for a true freshman. Left tackle, that is incredible. So, yeah, he has been nothing short of a superstar, and there's no reason to think he's not going to be that in the NFL either. The guy I want to highlight on this offensive line is Jackson Powers Johnson, JPJ from Oregon, who, dude, I think this is maybe the easiest award we're going to go over is the Remington Award, which is given to the best center. It's him, JPJ. I mean, he led all centers in the country in overall grade, pass blocking grade, and run blocking grade. That is insane. All three aspects, overall, pass blocking, run blocking, literally, he was the best at everything he could do out there on that Oregon offensive line. And on 471 pass blocking snaps, he only gave up one pressure. 0 sacks, 0 hits, 1 pressure on 471 pass blocking snaps. That 0.2% pressure rate allowed is by far the best of any center in college football. So he has clearly been the best center in the nation this year, and I think it is very well deserved that he is our first team All-American center in this one.
Totally agree. Absolutely. You got two just future NFL studs right there, and what Powers Johnson was asked to do. Keep in mind, too, he played guard last year. He was not a center. He moved over, I believe, from right guard and immediately best center in the country. Just incredible work, and we've been talking about Oregon's offensive line all year. Just terrific work by them all season. Yeah,
he had like an 80-plus grade at guard, too. So, I mean, this is a guy in the NFL. I mean, he could play guard. He could play anywhere on the interior offensive line, honestly, and he could do very well. So, let's go over to our front seven now. So, our two interior defensive linemen are Tavondre Sweat from Texas and our guy, Jerzon Newton from Illinois. Another interview we have. He was maybe my favorite interview we've ever had. Or two edge defenders, Laiatu Latu from UCLA and Braylon Trice from Washington. And then the two linebackers are Peyton Wilson from NC State and Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. So who do you want to highlight there, Dalton, out of the front seven players we have?
Well, this is fun because I don't think there was differing opinions in the voting any more so than this edge group. At least the second spot. I saw a ton of names when we were voting. We voted for the top 4, and then we kind of compiled points and things like that. And Trice came out on top. I may have even had Ashton Gelati there. I can't even remember. There was probably 6 or 8 different names. Chop Robinson was up there, but there was one name in first place for everybody, and that's Laiatu Latu, man. Best, highest graded player, offense or defense in the country, 95.3 overall. The only edge player in PFF history to finish a season with a higher grade than that is Chase Young in 2019 at a 96, and he went second overall in the 2020 draft. So 64 pressures, best pass rush grade in the country, 14 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, just an absolute force. Another guy, if he's not going top 10 in the draft, he's certainly going top 15. UCLA had the best defense in the Pac-12 by far. And this guy, along with a loaded D-line along with it, and we'll see how many of those guys might follow DeAnton Lynn to USC now. But Latu, the best player among them, the best defensive player in the country this year. It really wasn't even close. And to be in the company of a guy like Chase Young and what he did his last year at Ohio State is just incredible. God, dude, and their defense kept them in every single game. It was hard to think that you could have a team play that level of defense the way the Pac-12 was this year, and UCLA's defense was it, man. That's still, even though I think they only finished with 7 or 8 wins, you could put that in the top 5 or 6 defenses in the country easy.
Yep.
In large part because of this guy.
Absolutely. And right behind him, so Chase Young had the highest grade season, like you mentioned, for an edge defender. Right behind Latu, though, is Aiden Hutchinson. We had a 94.5 grade. Hutchinson was in second place for the Heisman that year. And I argue he probably should have won the Heisman that year for Michigan. So the fact that Latu is above him in grading, it shows a lot. And yeah, Trevor Sickle's mock draft today that just came out, you can check it out at PFF.com. He had Latu going 5th overall to the Chicago Bears. Yeah. So top 5 pick in Latu. So really cool story for him too. I mean, he medically retired at Washington. We had a neck injury. He missed the 2020 and 2021 seasons because of that neck injury. Transferred to UCLA, was great last year, and like you said, he's been the best player probably in the country this year. So awesome story for him. Another guy, I mentioned him before. I got to talk about him again, but Jazon Newton, man, from Illinois, who we love. He had 44 pressures this year, tied for most in the country. He also led all Power 5 D linemen last year in pressures as well. So 2 straight years where Jazon Newton has at least led the Power 5 in pressures for defensive tackles. 8 sacks this year, tied for 2nd in the country. Also, he's not only a great pass rusher, 25 run defense stops, tied for 5th in the nation as well. I mean, Jazon hopefully will be coming on the show down the line. I know he still keeps in touch with us, and he's a guy that I know is very focused on the NFL draft. And anytime you say, oh man, you might be a top 10 pick, he goes, I'm going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So he's a guy that I know is very, very excited about the draft, and he should be, man, because with the performances like these in the last 2 seasons, he will definitely, in my opinion, hear his name called in the top 15, and I think he should hear his name called in the top 10 for how good he's been these last couple seasons. So let's go over to our secondary now, our first-team All-American secondary. At corner, we got Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama and Sebastian Castro from Iowa. At safety, we got Tyler Nubin from Minnesota and Caleb Downs from Alabama. And then at our flex spot, our flex defensive player, the safety from Oregon State, Ketan Oladapo is our flex defensive player there. So, Dalton, who in the secondary do you want to talk about here?
Well, I'll tell you, this was corner other than that second edge spot was the other hardest, I think, thing to pick among these folks. We saw a ton of different names. You saw the sheet. We saw a ton of different names. McKinstry, Castro, DeJean, Terrion Arnold, Chris Abrams-Drain. I had Quincy Riley somewhere snuck in there. I just a ton of corners that played really good football this year. But I'm going to highlight McKinstry. We've highlighted some of these other guys before, but McKinstry, and some people go, well, how do you have a guy in the first team who actually didn't have an interception this year? And is it all hype? Is it just a cool name? And I go, no, you know what he is? You know what he is? Like another guy with a cool name like Sauce Gardner. It's just lights out, man.
Yep.
It's just lights out. Yep. You can't even throw at this guy. For the season, 16 for 36, 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 pass breakups, and only 62 yards after the catch. And you see right there, since week 7, that's insane when you think about the teams they've played since then. Tennessee and Ole Miss and Georgia, and these are some of the best passing attacks in the country. They can get over the top. One mistake could get you more than that 48 yards. 5 for 15, 48 yards in his last 7 games. It's just lights out. It's something you kind of have to, because it's not flashy and there's not a ton of plays on the ball, because you have to stay away from him. If you throw at Kool-Aid and McKinstry, you're asking to lose. You're just asking to lose football games, honestly. He's that good. And I think sometimes these are the types of corners that need to be highlighted. They're so good they don't even get thrown at. It's the Darrelle Revis, Sauce Gardner argument, and I totally get it with McKinstry. The interesting thing is that both his only touchdown and his longest play of the year were allowed in that Texas game to Adonai Mitchell. So if we do get a rematch in the championship game, this is to me, it's a big revenge game for Kool-Aid McKinstry trying to come back. Now, did he give up a ton in that game? No, I think the season high in that game, I think it was 47 yards he gave up in that game. But when you give up your longest play and your only touchdown of the year to the same team, and you might see him again, that's going to be, if you get those two teams in the final, that's going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Terrion Arnold, his other running mate there, could have been made this first-team All-American list as well. I mean, what they had in that secondary, you already saw Caleb Downs was one of our safeties. It's insane what the Alabama secondary, and I think the best secondary in the country this year. I think the best safety in the country this year was Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. He was both the highest-graded safety in the country with a 90.3 grade, also led all safeties in the nation with a 17.5 passer rating allowed this year. And a stat that I loved, and when I saw this, he was targeted 19 times this season. He allowed 5 catches, and he caught 5 passes himself. 5 interceptions and 5 catches allowed all season for Tyler Nubin. This guy, listen, it's tough to say locked down for safeties because of what their responsibilities are, but man, he was awesome for Minnesota this year, and he made a lot of money in the process as well. This guy is leaping up draft boards I've seen all over the place right now, including PFF's right now as well. So Tyler Nubin, we'll get into the awards on Wednesday. I might argue, Dalton, that Tyler Nubin might be the Jim Thorpe Award winner for how well he's played this season. There's a lot of other deserving candidates, but he was unbelievable. We
had a ton of guys play well at corner and a couple of guys, but Nubin definitely stands out among all the safeties, and especially playing for a team in Minnesota that it's Big Ten West. They don't score much out there. There's a lot of pressure to play really, really good defense, and this is really the second year in a row he's done this. If they gave him the award, I wouldn't argue with it for sure. Just an impact player, and he's going to be an impact player in the NFL. Just ball skills, great instincts, and I know again I think there needs to be something said, and I think it's kind of the Florida State argument again for teams that struggle on offense and their defense has all the pressure, even like Iowa, like Sebastian Castro is on this list. Some people had Cooper DeJean up there too. The pressure that it takes to play defense when your offense is only giving you 13, 17 points is even greater. And Nubin, man, he responds every time. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, we got to go over our guys, special teamers now. Our kicker is Joshua Carty from Stanford. Our punter is James Burnip from Alabama. Our return specialist is Zachariah Branch from USC. And this isn't technically voted on by the PFF, obviously 17 PFF College Football Minds, but I wanted to throw it in here as Dalton and I wanted to do. The special teamer is Ladarius Tennyson from Ole Miss. And, of course, our long snapper is Trey Corley from Louisiana Monroe, is our first-team All-American long snapper. So, Dalton, of these special teamers who do matter, they matter too, who's the guy that you want to highlight here?
Oh, the third phase always matters, Max. And for me, it's Josh Carty. I'm going to go the kicker route this time. I finished the season with a 95 field goal grade. And anytime you see a 95, you got to start checking some historical things. It's actually the second best kicker or field goal kicking season behind Daniel Carlson in 2016 at Auburn, just behind him at a 95.1. Just terrific work. And I know Stanford didn't have a whole lot going for him. I mean, Iamainer at receiver is a freak, and this guy is the other one. These are the two bright spots for this team. Only missed 2 kicks in his career under 50 yards. 8 for 15 in his career from 50 plus, and 2 of those were blocked. I mean, second in field goal grade last year, by far first this year, third in kickoff grade this year. Just this guy's an NFL kicker. I mean, he is. It's kind of at kicker, the production is actually what kind of just sets it apart. You don't really need to see a whole lot of it or project a whole lot. You go, has this guy got a good leg, and does he make kicks? And Carty's been doing it his whole career. And when you're up there with a name like Daniel Carlson, who actually is second behind him now in career grade, who, longtime kicker, excellent kicker for the Raiders. You're going to hear Carty's name for probably the next 12 to 15 years in the NFL. He's that good. Yeah, absolutely. And the guy I want to highlight, obviously we always do this, is our long snapper, Trey Corley from Louisiana Monroe. Of course, again, not voted on by the PFF data collectors and analysts and top college football minds, but we wanted to put it in here. I still can't believe Trey Corley is a picture that Eli got, if Eli's the GOAT for getting this. But look at the bow tie that matches the team colors down there at Monroe. He's great
looking
stuff.
Good. I love that, man. That's great stuff. 83.8 grade this year. That's first in the nation. He had 0 bad snaps that we charted on 36 field goal and extra point attempts this year. So Trey Corley, our highest graded long snapper in the country, and he's our first team preferred walk-on All-American long snapper. I don't want to say PFF because we didn't, like I said, we didn't vote on this as a collective company, but we needed to throw it in there as a long snapper and special teamer as well. So that's what our PFF All-American team looks like. Again, the full list will be out on PFF.com tomorrow. And also for our full list for all the conference teams as well. And Dalton and I threw in a couple votes for the FCS All-American team. So we threw in votes for that one as well, because obviously that is a very, very important one as well. So if you want to check out all of them, and of course, there's also a second team All-American that you can only find in the article if you find it at PFF.com. So make sure you find the article at PFF.com and look at that if you want to see the guys who just missed the first team All-American list. Again, find it at PFF.com. But yeah, that's what we got. And we want to remind you guys again, if you guys can, to go to our audio only platforms. We got, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever, and like and subscribe there. Leave reviews, 5-star reviews there, and leave questions there as well, because now we are officially kind of getting into the college football offseason. Of course, we're still going to cover the bowl games, of course, and the college football playoff national championship, but we're kind of getting into that offseason mode. And during that offseason, Dalton and I both all want to hear from you, and we want to hear from you guys and get your questions in and answer your questions and get your takes in. Even if you have takes that you want us to react to, we would love that as well. So make sure you guys leave reviews there and subscribe to those channels as well. And we'll get to your questions at some point in a very soon episode that we will do very soon. So that's what we got for our All-American team, for our playoff reaction, for our quick transfer portal reaction as well. And we'll do our awards on Wednesday, which will be very, very fun as well. See you take some of the Heisman Trophy, a lot of other great awards too. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun these next couple of weeks, Dalton. Because we got awards coming up, we got transfer portal coming up, coaching hires we still have to react to as well, bowl games we got to preview, playoff that we have to preview, national championship that we got to preview. I mean, man, it feels like we're wrapping up, but still, man, this last month that we're gonna have is gonna be absolutely loaded.
Yeah, it sure is. The bowl slate is still going to be really, really good despite all the controversy at the top. I mean, there's some games I can't wait for, man. It's going to be a fun one. It's always fun this time of year when you get teams that don't face each other often. So we'll have fun with it along the way, and still we'll try. We're also going to get. I'm also going to get a tally max of all of our game picks this year together, and see who's winning, and then we're going to try to get picks in for every bowl game despite all of the guys sitting out in transfer portal and everything else going on there. So we'll have fun. We should.
ESPN does a bowl game picker thing that you pick every game. We should make a group and have all the preferred walk-on listeners join our group and do that.
An idea. That's an idea.
I think we could do that, and then we could do that as well. And we'll find out. We'll also find out how Dalton and I did in our game picks this year and declare a national champion based off that as well between two teams. Just Dalton and I will do that too. But yeah, that's what we got for our episode. Make sure you guys tune in Wednesday for another loaded episode. So for producer Eli back there, for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Max Chadwick, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.